There is very compelling evidence to suggest that Jack the Ripper, the serial murderer who marauded the streets of London in 1888, was none other than Mahatma Gandhi. Now, I know that sounds like odd, a real strange allegation to make. However, the evidence is kind of overwhelming. For example, Your Honor, for my first piece of evidence, I'd like to point out that when Gandhi came to London to study law, he arrived in 1888, which was the year that Jack the Ripper started murdering women. And then he left, he finished his law degree and he left in 1891. And mysteriously, that's when the murders stopped. Bit of a coincidence. So he was definitely there at the time. He was suspiciously there at the time. And then he wasn't there when the murders stopped. Secondly, if we were to look at the witness descriptions, so there were 3 people who claimed to have seen Jack the Ripper with their own peepers, and they gave descriptions of him. And their description said that he was between the height of 5'5" and 5'7". And also, he had a full head of dark brown hair, a small brown mustache, and he dressed rather dapper. Now, would you be surprised to know that Gandhi's height was exactly 5'5"? Also, if you look at this picture of Gandhi from around the time that he was in London, you'll see that he had a full head of brown hair, a small brown mustache, and he dressed quite dapper. Also, as a little bit of sprinkling on top, investigators at the time of the murders determined that Jack the Ripper was likely either left-handed or sort of highly adept with his left hand. Just based on the direction of the wounds, it seems like he was slicing using his left hand. Now, Gandhi was also highly adept using his left hand. In fact, when he was writing the Hind Swaraj, there was a 40-page block of that book which was handwritten using his left hand entirely. All I'm saying is, the evidence is starting to add up, because he was there at the time, and he matches the description. All we need now is a motive. And I've got one. So as we all know, the Jack the Ripper murders primarily targeted prostitutes in London. Now, Gandhi was implacably opposed to prostitution. He called prostitution a moral leprosy. He said it was a matter of bitter shame, sorrow, and humiliation. And then he preached that women should remain pure and that their purity would protect them from some fairly rebarbative stuff that I'm not going to mention because it would bring the tone of the video down. So he was opposed to prostitution, and he was also kind of violent towards women. I mean, he was violent towards one specific woman who was his wife because, well, Gandhi didn't sort of embrace non-violence as a concept until around the year 1900. But he got married. Unfortunately for his wife, he got married before that. And when he was getting older, he admitted that when he was younger, he was sort of violent towards his wife. He admitted to dragging her around by her wrist and yelling at her. And there are biographers of Gandhi now who say that he physically struck his wife. So he was violent towards at least our woman, and he was implacably opposed to prostitutes. So, Your Honor, he was there at the time. He matches the witness descriptions, and he's got a motive. So can somebody please go grab a pair of derbies and arrest his corpse? Now, this theory is compelling, very compelling, as long as you don't look into it too far, because there is extra information which kind of disproves it, unfortunately. I'm sorry to rug pull you from such a delicious conspiracy theory, but there's some details which I left out. First of all, Gandhi didn't arrive in London until after the second murder had already happened. Aww. Also, if you go read those witness descriptions, they also described him as being between the ages of 30 and 40 years old. Gandhi was only 18 when he arrived in London. And they also described him as having a pale complexion, which Gandhi did not. So it definitely wasn't Gandhi, unfortunately. But it's still a fun little theory to think about. It's a fun little thought experiment. And I'm sure there's other arguments that you could throw in the mix, which would make it very compelling. And the best part about this is, I didn't have to lie to you. Unless you count lying by omission. I didn't lie to you at all. Everything that I've said to you, to the best of my knowledge, was absolutely true. I was able to convince you of something that wasn't true without saying something that wasn't true. I led you for a merry dance. Unfortunately, I'm the type of person that doesn't lead leave you believing the false thing. But the unfortunate thing is there's so many people out there that do the same thing that I just did, and then they don't tell you that it was a lie at the end. This is why it's so easy to convince Joe Rogan of anything, because you can't be a genius in every area, and Joe Rogan definitely isn't. Joe Rogan is a genius when it comes to getting kicked in the face, but other than that, he don't know much. You know, he knows small pockets of information about everything. So when he gets an absolute huckster who sits down in front of him and then picks and chooses the bits of the truth that he wants to present to him, Joe Rogan, he's not in a position to call him out for lying, because it's really easy when someone lies to you, because you can just fact check. You just go on Google, is this thing they said true? And it will say no. But if you go with the things that I told you at the beginning of the video, and you go to Google, is this true? The Google will tell you yes. Google will say, yeah, all of this is true, but it's not the whole truth. It's so annoying. There's so much bullshittery around. I've been on Twitter for 15 years. Which is over half of my life now. I've wasted over half of my life refreshing the hellscape that is Twitter. And I see it all of the time on there, every single day. I keep saying I'm going to quit. I'm going to leave Twitter and never go back. And I don't, because I get bored. You know, Sam Harris, the author Sam Harris, once described Twitter as the place that you go, endlessly refreshing, trying to feel the way that you did when you first opened the app. And he's got it down to a T. Anyway, this was fun. You know, we should do this again sometime. Just you and me having this little talk. Thanks for the 8,000 subscribers. That's pretty cool. I know people like nowadays that doesn't seem like much, and people go, well, it's just a number. But truly, from the bottom of my heart, I want to say it is just a number. But I do appreciate it anyway. So cheers. You know, I've worn this hat now in 2 videos over a month period, because I've been trying to get a haircut, and my barber went on holiday for a month. And I am so loyal, and I refuse to pay more, and my barber is very cheap. I'm so loyal to him that I have waited till he gets home.